out your negative thoughts. Let me see what they say.
We need to talk about the N-word. Now, as you can probably tell, I'm a white person, and I'm also 16 years old, so I wasn't necessarily around before slavery was abolished. I wasn't necessarily around for the Black Lives Matter movement, anything like that, so you probably have your questions about my authority to talk about this topic, and that's fair. But I'm not here to make a case that white people should be able to say the N-word or anything like that. It's actually quite the opposite, so let me explain. The 2010s kind of era is what brought around the biggest revolutions in anti-racism. The Black Lives Matter movement kind of spearheaded that in 2013, I think. And it seemed like we were finally bridging the gap, which the likes of Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. had laid the foundations for quite a while ago. It is a shame that it took police brutality and actual deaths to open our eyes, but that's what it took, and at that point racism started to get some much needed attention. So obviously I don't have any experience with this. I was a little kid playing Disney Infinity, and I probably didn't know what a black person was at the time. So tell me if you disagree, but I think, judging by what I've learned, that the late 2010s to 2020 kind of era was the climax of racial equality in the world. And maybe this is me being a Gen Z in my Gen Z bubble, but I feel like we've gone backwards, and that's why I feel like we need to talk about the N-word today. It's important that we remember the history of the word. It can be easy to forget with how casually it's used in the modern day, but starting in the 18th century, the N-word was a derogatory term used towards slaves, specifically black slaves. It was a disgusting way for white people to put down black people, to make them feel lesser. It's quite literally a way to say to a black person that you believe they're less than you just for being black. It's the highest degree of a slur. It's often cited as the single most offensive word in the English language. I'm sure you can understand why this word is so intolerable in the modern day, where humanity's collective goal is to put aside our history of racial injustice and just exist as one human race. In the 20th century, this slur was still used in a derogatory manner, only at this point it was becoming less and less acceptable as black people were actually regarded as humans with rights. This was long overdue, but anyways. Now, for the past maybe 40 years, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a socially unacceptable word, with the exception of if you're a black person yourself. That's how all slurs work. Like, only a gay person can appropriately say the F slur, because the basic premise of slurs, or really anything offensive, is that if you are part of the targeted demographic of it, you're allowed to say it, because the fact is you're basically insulting yourself, so that balances it out. By the way, before I go on, this channel is brand new, so every little bit of support is huge motivation for me to keep making videos. So if you feel that this topic is valuable in any way and that you think other people should see it, potentially, I'd really appreciate if you did subscribe. I'd be stoked to get to like 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Now, I just said how it's only acceptable to say the N-word if you're a black person, but I mean, if you're in Gen Z, or you at least scroll TikTok or Reels for hours a week, you probably notice something is wrong with that statement, because it's totally normal for anyone to say the N-word. And not even casually. Like, on one hand, yeah, the pasty-ass white guys just dapping each other up and calling each other the N-word for the laughs, but it's actually worse than that, and I'm going to show you a few Reels to make an example. And fair warning, you're going to hear the word an unfathomable number of times, so skip to the next chapter if you don't want to hear it.
DJ Pichka.
Fuck niggers! Fuck niggers! Fuck niggers! You stupid nigger! Nigga! 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 Hey! Остановись!
Those are very normal Reels. That's not a joke. I could ask 100 people of my age and, my general demographic if they've heard that sound before, and I promise you that at least like 40 would have heard that. Somehow it's just common humour now to just say the N-word outright in legitimately hateful ways sometimes. And yeah, most of the time it's satire, and the rest of the time it's just unoriginal racist jokes that you've heard 400 times before. But, the normalisation of the N-word does actually lead to more serious racism. I'm a person who has used the N-word, and not just once or twice, but look, please don't come at me, don't unsubscribe now, because as I think I've proven in the past few minutes, I'm not racist. Whenever I did say the word, it was never racially charged, never an actual attack on black people in any way, and I'm very much an advocate for equality and fair treatment. That's why I'm making this video in the first place. But, that seems contradictory, right? So what exactly is going on? Well, as with the other millions of impressionable little kids on the internet, I was so dangerously exposed to the normalisation of the N-word since I was probably 12 years old. I'm not asking to be excused. I should have known that my use of the word was adding to the problem. I knew damn well what the word meant. But then again, as you might have realised, there's actually kind of two N-words. So one of them is the hard R, and that's a big red flag, but the other one is the one that ends with an A, and is used casually by most black people. So yeah, there's this strange phenomenon of the word somehow being a friendly phrase between black people despite its history, and that's all well and good. I mean, I think it's honestly great that they've taken this absolute weapon of a word and made it their bitch. But then again, everyone's starting to want to join in on that fun. Sorry for the jump scare there. You're wrong if you believe that these videos are only made by black people. So how is this accepted? Because over time, it became more and more normal for people to say the N-word regardless of race, as long as it wasn't derogatory. But as we can see, we've kind of taken that and run too far with it. So as you can tell, I'm Australian, and over here the schools have uniforms, except for my one, but that doesn't matter, all the other ones do. So when I went to a school that did have a uniform, the rules around it were strict. You had to have your shirt tucked in at all times, your shoes had to be polished and uncomfortable as shit. You couldn't wear a jumper without a blazer over it for some reason. That one's crazy, I don't understand that. Your socks had to be a specific colour, and you couldn't have logos on them, and so on. However, the enforcement of these rules was poor. By year 10, I'd be walking around the school with my shirt untucked, and so did almost everyone else. And we knew that there could be consequences, but since everyone else broke the rules, it was fine. When everyone else got away with having their shirt untucked, I realised I didn't have to follow the rules anymore. And, maybe this is a poor analogy, because having to tuck in your shirt, and by the way, these shirts feel like actual paper, like you're wearing paper. It's stupid to have to do that, and untucking your shirt isn't unethical and doesn't harm anyone. But the point stands, the same kind of rule breaking happens with the N-word. Everyone on the internet says it and gets away with it, so it's basically natural for a 15-year-old boy to add it to his vocabulary. I could and did call my black friends the N-word, always in a friendly way, but, if they didn't like it, I'd never have known, because it's not like they'd tell me off when it was so normal. I, and everyone else, forgot that this word is a slur. Again, that is absolutely not me excusing myself for saying the word, because, I should have had the compassion and the perspective to tell myself that actually saying the N-word should not be normal. I shouldn't do this. We all know the history of what people often call the single worst word in the English language. And yet, there are more of us than we'd like to admit who use this word without a care in the world. By the way, calling it the worst word in the English language might be my Australian bias, where we all walk around calling each other cunts on a daily basis. But elsewhere, that word is sometimes considered worse, but not to us or the Brits. But anyway, that's what brings me to the other topic of this video, which might sound controversial at first, but you need to hear me out. Saying the N-word does not automatically make you racist. It sounds crazy, because the way most people see it is if you have the insensitivity to say the word, you have to be racist, right? And as I said at the start of the video, I'm not advocating for white people or anyone other than black people to be enabled to say the N-word. Matter of fact, I think legitimate racism is not punished harshly enough. I'm just saying that we need to clarify the distinction between someone having a PewDiePie bridge incident and accidentally letting one slip, and someone throwing around the hard R like a KKK member. They're not the same. I absolutely understand the sensitivity behind it. Like, as a black person, you deserve to be infuriated if a white person says the N-word. Of course you do. It shouldn't happen. However, if it does, we need to keep an open mind about it, rather than immediately labelling them as racist. Yes, they said a thing which is synonymous with a disgusting history of violence and oppression and all this horrible shit. We shouldn't let it slide. But just know they're probably being influenced by the internet, where they believe that saying the N-word isn't problematic. Half of the kids who say it wouldn't say it if they were made more aware of the implications, right? I made this video to make more people aware of the implications. This doesn't sympathise with legitimate racists like your grandpa, though. Everyone says if you're called the N-word, you should call it out, you should speak up about it. But I think we all know that it just isn't that easy. Like, if you can even muster up the courage to do something so brave in the first place, you'll probably be labelled as the one in the wrong for getting worked up about it, right? That's just the power of someone saying, it isn't that deep. So yeah, I really think we need to get the racism conversation going again, because, at least from my point of view, society seems to be going backwards. There will always be bad actors out there throwing this fucked up word around. I literally was one of them. And that is hard to say to you now because, it makes me feel so bad about myself. And that's not to mention the people I could have inadvertently hurt by saying it. But the truth is, I wasn't the only one. It's quite the opposite. I swear, almost everybody uses the word like it doesn't matter, but not everyone who says it with malicious intent. While this video is about the N-word in particular, it ties into the broader issue of racism in the modern day. Racism is archaic. It's primitive. If you actually regard someone as worse just because of their race, you're thinking like a caveman. People come from racist households. That's true, and I get that. You might have old ass parents, and you've been taught to believe that you're part of the Aryan, the master race, and that all the other ones are lesser than you. That's just human egotism. We need to push past that and remember that at the end of the day, we're all Homo sapiens. So yeah, I want to leave you with a saying that's emerged from TikTok as of late that really summarizes my point, and that is, it is that deep. Racism is that deep. If you're someone who inappropriately uses the N-word, and there's a high likelihood that you could be, I've been there, and it takes a lot to change your ways. So that's why I'm making this, because I just want to help. The comments are open, and I really want to hear your thoughts on this topic as a whole. I also hope I can get this message to as many people as I can, so if you think I deserve a like and subscription, that would be a huge and free way to help us out. But either way, thank you for watching.
Oscar Bryce. Ha 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 ha.